When my phone buzzed that morning, I thought it was a congratulations text. It wasn't. The message had only 5 words. "We're not coming. Don't call." It was from my father. And that's how my wedding morning began. My name is Brianna Jenkins. And in that single moment, everything I'd spent years building, every ounce of composure, pride, and faith, cracked from the inside out. He wasn't just skipping my wedding. He was erasing me, again. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just stared at the screen until Liam, my fiancé, looked up, read the message, and made 3 quiet phone calls. No questions, no anger, just 3 silent acts that would unravel every truth I thought I understood about loyalty, justice, and love. Because some betrayals don't explode. They whisper. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving Denver wrapped in a pale, uneasy stillness, the kind of quiet that doesn't comfort, it warns. The white suit hung ready by the door, pressed and waiting, and the badge beside it caught the first slice of morning light. I fastened it to my chest out of habit more than pride, feeling the weight settle exactly where the ache began. I'd never been the kind of woman who dreamed about lace or candlelit vows. Truth felt cleaner than romance. My mother used to say that justice should look that way too, sharp, clear, unflinching. By 9, I was supposed to stand at St. Matthew's, the same church where we'd once buried her. The flowers were already delivered. The guest list confirmed, every seat accounted for, except the ones meant for my family. The phone buzzed against the counter. His name lit the screen. 5 words, no greeting, no explanation. "We're not coming. Don't call." The breath left my body before the tears could try. The badge over my heart glinted against the light, a flash of silver over something breaking quietly beneath. Liam walked out of the kitchen, coffee in hand. One look at my face was enough. He read the message, said nothing, and dialed 3 times, steady, deliberate, without hesitation, short commands, clipped replies, silence. When he hung up, he adjusted my collar and said softly, "Let's go." I nodded. The words automatic. Inside, something final gave way. The message hadn't just canceled attendance, it had ended a bloodline of belonging. I grew up believing honor was something you could wear, something that shined, commanded rooms, and made people step aside. My father put his on every morning with his badge, the way other men wore faith. I used to think I wanted one just like it, until I realized he loved the medal more than the man it was pinned to. Our house sat 2 blocks from the Colorado Springs precinct. Nights were filled with the crackle of police radios and the echo of his voice reading reports long after midnight. The walls smelled of gun oil and stale coffee. My mother was the only soft thing in that house, a forensic nurse with hands so gentle she made the dead look at peace. She taught me that truth doesn't come from orders, it comes from observation. Then came the call, a shootout with a drug ring. She went in to help the wounded and never came home. At the funeral, my father stood like a monument, not a man. I cried until my vision blurred, and he leaned close enough for only me to hear, "Don't make her death look weak." That night, I heard glass shatter down the hall. By morning, he'd made a new rule. No one in this house will ever work behind a microscope again. I didn't argue. I only thought, if justice needed someone to dissect it, I would. Years later, when I earned my federal certification, I mailed him an invitation to the oath ceremony. He didn't come. A week later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No note, no card, only air. I kept it. I call it approval by silence. Morning came cold and wet, the kind of Denver gray that seeps through glass and into bone. I sat in the car outside the church, watching rain streak down the windshield. Across the street, a black SUV idled, too still to be random. Liam glanced up from his phone, his tone even. "Don't worry, just observers. Maybe." But I knew that plate, Department of the Interior. Instinct took over. I opened my laptop, tapped into the secure registry. The name blinked on screen. Harold Jenkins, Special Security Advisor. Department of the Interior. Effective date. Yesterday. My stomach tightened. My father, who'd once called my career a betrayal, was now part of the very system that dismissed mine. And on the same day, I received that message. Don't call. I dug deeper. The security team originally assigned to the wedding had been pulled just hours before the text arrived. Authorization signature, Brianna Jenkins. He hadn't just refused to come, he'd withdrawn protection. I said it under my breath, more to the rain than to Liam. He didn't look up, only said quietly, "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what to think." I shot back. Sometimes silence keeps you alive. The words hit harder than he meant them to. Later, when we arrived at St. Matthew's, 3 men in dark suits stood by the gate. No badges, no words. They only nodded to Liam as we passed. I asked who they were. He said, "The reason you're safe to walk that aisle." And just like that, I understood. His 3 quiet calls weren't just a reaction. They were the beginning of something calculated. A protection I hadn't asked for. A boundary I couldn't yet see. The unseen line had been drawn. I just didn't know which side of it my father and my future stood on. The sky was painfully clear that morning, Denver sharp and bright as glass. St. Matthews stood silent, the air inside heavy enough to make each step echo. My heels clicked down the stone aisle, the sound too loud, too alone. Then the doors opened. The front rows weren't empty after all. They were filled with faces from the bureau, men and women in dark suits, people who'd walked through fire beside me. When I entered, they rose together, hands over hearts. The gesture was one reserved for the fallen, yet they gave it to me. No words, no orders, just respect. One voice near the aisle whispered that half of them wouldn't be alive without me. I kept walking. The organ played slow and low, like my mother's heart remembered through glass. Light spilled through the windows, flooding my white suit and color. At the altar, Liam waited. His eyes found mine. No smile, no tears, just stillness. The chaplain began. I glanced toward the front pew, his pew, empty, but glowing, as if sunlight had taken my father's place. When the vows ended, applause broke softly. I looked back once more toward the door, half expecting a shadow. There was none, only light. That night, no music played. 2 white suits hung side by side, catching the glow of a single lamp. I asked what his 3 calls meant. Liam's voice was steady. The first restored security. The second contacted an ally. The third warned the department their silence had consequences. My laptop chimed. A red alert flashed. Unauthorized access. My mother's case file. The timestamp matched the ceremony. The source, the Department of the Interior. I froze. He already knew. The file was gone again. Maybe my father deleted it. Maybe someone used his clearance. Liam stepped closer. His tone softened. The third call wasn't a threat. He said, "It was bait." My chest tightened. Our wedding had been a trap. He swore it was protection, for both of us. But as the light flickered between us, I wondered if every man who claimed to protect me was really just deciding how quiet I should be. 3 days after the wedding, I went back to the Denver lab. People smiled politely, but their eyes lingered too long, pity mixed with curiosity. I'd heard the rumor already. My own father had blacklisted me from the department. Midway through the day, a package landed on my desk. No return address. The label read, Internal Archive, Evidence 2045 GR. Inside was a dented metal box, its hinges stiff with age. The folder inside bore a name that froze my breath. Grace Jenkins, 2003. My mother. The files smelled of dust and old ink. I flipped through blood reports, bullet samples, then stopped at a photo I had never seen. Her body on concrete, blood spreading in a perfect shape of wings. A butterfly of loss. In the corner of the frame, the heel of a boot caught the light, badge number 27 carved into the sole. I ran the code through the system. Colonel Walter Pierce, my father's old partner, now Deputy Secretary of the Interior. A note was paper-clipped to the file. You want truth? Follow the badge number. My hands shook, not from fear, but from everything finally aligning into something uglier than memory. I brought the box to Liam's office, tossed the photo onto his desk. He didn't deny it. His silence was answer enough. I turned the report, saw both signatures, my father's and Pierce's, authentic lies, side by side. When I asked why he hadn't told me, he said he wanted me alive. Pierce controlled the Bureau's funding. People who reopened that case vanished. So you married me to keep me quiet? I asked. He caught my wrist. No, he said. I married you because you'd never stay quiet. That hurt more than a lie. Love, control. Different words for the same kind of cage. That night, I left. The box beside me on the passenger seat, the ring on the dash, and the mountains ahead swallowing the last light. Estes Park waited in silence, and the wind felt full of questions my heart wasn't ready to ask. I woke to wind clawing at the cabin walls. Snow pressed against the window, muting the world. Then 3 knocks broke the silence. Slow, deliberate, the kind that asked permission instead of demanding it. He stood on the porch, snow crusting his shoulders, eyes hollow from years of carrying the wrong truth. My father, you found the box, he said. I asked if he'd sent it. He hadn't, but he'd known it would find me. When I demanded the truth, he paused so long I thought he'd turn away. Then, quietly, he said the bullet was an accident, fired by his partner. He'd forged the report to protect the department, not the man. He said mistakes inside the badge destroy more than the criminals we chase. You didn't protect her, I told him. You buried her. He said he was protecting what was left of us. I said he was protecting his pride. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, the lamplight catching every regret carved into his face. You've spent your life proving you're not me, he said. I've spent mine defending a shadow of what I was. I reached for the small journal I'd found under the floorboards, my mother's. I read the last line aloud. He didn't shoot me. He just never stopped protecting the wrong things. Tears fell down his face. His first. No badge, no rank. Just a man stripped bare in the cold. She forgave me long before you could, he whispered. And you? I looked toward the snow piling high on the porch. Maybe start by standing in it, I said. Because she did? She waited in the cold and still believed warmth would return. He stepped into the snow, breath fogging in the dark. When he turned back, his voice trembled. You sound just like her. The wind swallowed the words, but for the first time, his silence didn't hurt. It almost sounded like peace. The snow hadn't stopped by morning. It fell in steady sheets across the pines, soft but relentless, the way truth keeps returning, no matter how deep it's buried. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ring I'd taken off the night before. The metal caught the gray light, a thin blade glinting between what I'd lost and what I still owed. The phone rang. Liam's voice came quiet, controlled. Don't leave the cabin. He's coming, to arrest me or to confess. I asked. Neither, he said. To say goodbye. Half an hour later, the crunch of tires broke the silence. My father stepped from his car, coat heavy with snow, something wrapped in cloth held carefully in his hands. He entered without a word and placed the bundle on the table. Inside lay my mother's badge, tarnished but intact. On the back, a faint engraving, for Grace, who stood when no one else did. She carried compassion into chaos. He said, So do you? Then why hide her truth? I asked. Because truth destroys men who can't face it, he answered. Then let it destroy the right ones. He exhaled, eyes lowered. They've called me to testify before the federal hearing, he said. I won't lie this time. I handed the badge back. Then stand beside me tomorrow. Not as a cop, as my father. His voice cracked. I don't deserve that. You don't have to. You just have to show up. The door swung open. Liam entered, breath sharp, snow melting in his hair. My father looked at him, reading the truth in his stance. "You were ordered to arrest me, weren't you?" "Yes, sir," Liam said. "But I didn't make the fourth call." The room went still. The fourth call. The warrant. The one that never came. My father nodded slowly, the weight of it sinking in. He turned to me, his hand trembling as it touched my shoulder. "Your mother always said you'd be the bridge I never had the courage to cross." When he left, I watched him disappear into the white. The wind was colder than ever, but for the first time, it didn't hurt. It only felt clean. The marble steps of the Capitol glistened under the flash of cameras. The air felt heavy with the kind of silence that follows anticipation. Every news outlet in the country had sent someone. The words "Federal Ethics Hearing," "Falsified Case Report," "Grace Jenkins, 2003, burned from the banners lining the corridor. Inside, the chamber smelled of old paper and tension. I sat in the first row. The nameplate before me, reading witness, Brianna Jenkins. My father sat a few seats behind, stripped of his uniform, his badge long surrendered, just a man in a gray coat, shoulders squared out of habit, not pride. Behind him, in the shadowed corner, Walter Pierce waited, once my father's partner, now a man with the power to erase or rewrite history, and a reason to fear what daylight might reveal. When my father's name was called, he rose slowly, the wooden chair scraping the floor like a confession. He faced the committee, cleared his throat, and began in the same voice that once commanded entire precincts. 20 years ago, I lied to protect a man who didn't deserve it. I told myself I was preserving faith in the system. But every year since, I've watched my daughter carry the burden I should have faced. If protecting the badge means betraying the truth, then I've failed, both as an officer and as a father. No one moved. Even the press cameras stilled. The court reporter's pen froze mid-sentence. The chairman's voice broke the silence. "Chief Jenkins, do you admit to falsifying the report?" He straightened, his hands trembling just enough to make him human. "Yes." The sound of the gavel echoed once, sharp, final, the same way a cell door closes. But no one condemned him, no outrage, no applause, only the sound of breathing, heavy with something close to reverence. I stood, the microphone blinking red before me, my voice steadier than I felt. My mother believed justice isn't about punishment, it's about courage to face daylight. The presiding judge nodded, statement recorded. A moment later came the decision. "In recognition of your voluntary confession and record of service, this board grants you honorable retirement. Case closed. It wasn't absolution, but it was enough. A truth laid bare in front of the country, and a daughter finally unburdened." Walter Pierce's name followed in the next announcement, pending investigation, immediate suspension, the beginning of accountability. When the hearing adjourned, my father and I walked side by side through the storm of reporters. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Then, in a low, uneven voice, he said, "I thought the truth would destroy me. It didn't." I told him, "It set you free." He looked at me then, really looked, and smiled. Not the smile of a man vindicated, but of one who'd survived himself. The snow had stopped outside, the air sharp and clear, the kind of light my mother would have called honest, and for the first time, we both stepped into it. 6 months later, the city felt different, lighter somehow, as if the air had finally exhaled. I stood backstage at the Ethics in Law Enforcement Conference in Washington, D.C., listening to the murmur of hundreds of voices waiting. The topic printed across the program read, "The Price of Silence." When they called my name, I walked to the podium, the stage lights cutting through the stillness, faces blurred into one soft sea of color. I spoke about 3 calls, not names, not ranks, only moments that had rewritten what silence meant to me. 3 quiet calls, one restored protection, one restored trust, one restored truth. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just calls quietly, until someone finally listens. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then came the sound of applause, gentle at first, then rising like a tide. I didn't smile. I just looked up at the ceiling, where white light spilled through the glass dome, just as it had through St. Matthew's windows on the day everything began. After the session ended, I stepped into the hallway. My phone buzzed. A single text appeared on the screen. "Dinner tonight. No uniforms. Dad." I couldn't help it. The smile came easily this time. Outside, snowflakes drifted past the windows, thin and weightless, brushing against the world like forgiveness. I typed back, "I'll bring dessert," and added one line just for myself. He once silenced me. Now, silence finally means peace. As I walked out into the cold, I slipped my hand into my coat pocket. My mother's old badge rested there, warm from my palm. For years it had been a weight. Tonight it felt like a heartbeat. Because at last, silence wasn't the absence of love. It was the sound of it continuing, 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 sound of it continuing,